Hello and welcome to Module 3, Don't Be Irrationale, another really important module. However, Module 2 is arguably one of the most important modules we'll ever do in Requirements 101. So, if you have not seen it, please stop here and first watch Module 2. For those of you that are fully up to date with the modules, here is a quick recap of Module 2. The most important message from Module 2 is that we need to start viewing requirements as individual elements in a design process. And to do this effectively, we need to get into the habit of writing requirements one at a time. So, if you are in the business of writing BFDs, technical standards, project specifications, ITPs, contract documents, let me introduce you to your new best friend. Your new best friend is the Enter key on your keyboard. The days of writing chunks of text with multiple requirements are behind us. In the new world, we write individual requirements, individually numbered. In this module, we cover the next huge shift that we need to make with our requirements, and that is the inclusion of the rationale. But before we get into the value and definition of rationale, let's take a look at a scene played out on many of our projects.
Hey, you're a fan.
Huh?
Hey.
Oh, hi, Jason.
Hey, there's this requirement here in this project spec. I'm not sure if I need it. What's this requirement about?
Let me see. No idea. I didn't write that spec.
But your name's on the front page, author, Irfan.
That's me. But I just copy-pasted it from the last project, so technically, I didn't write that requirement.
Huh.
And the guy that did, he retired 2 months ago. Listen, my advice to you, just copy-paste it again. Hey, I'm a bit busy.
Okay, well, thanks for your time.
Anytime.
Appreciate it.
The rationale captures the reason for the requirement's existence. One of the biggest hurdles to efficient requirements management on projects is the absence of the rationale. In too many cases, we simply do not know why the requirement exists, and so we are struggling to determine if we need the requirement or if we could do without it. If we are struggling internally, what of the poor engineer at the contractor's end or at the vendor's end? This is the single biggest value add of the rationale. It helps the individual understand why the requirement exists. But the rationale can also include other information to better understand the requirement and improve our understanding. We are going to take a coffee break, and in the meantime, you can read and digest this definition while enjoying some light music. Okay, we're back. As you can see, a rationale can be used to capture critical information that will be important for successful implementation, not only on your specific project, but on future projects, as engineers will be much better informed on the context of your requirements, allowing legitimate and informed reuse. And reusing requirements is critical if we want to start making our projects more efficient. But how to record and capture a rationale? One of the more effective approaches we have seen is the one followed by NASA in their technical standards. This requirement is taken from a relatively new NASA standard as part of their preparations to send humankind back to the moon, and if that goes well, then it's off to Mars for the human race. The rationale helps the reader understand not only why the requirement exists, but it also helps contextualize the otherwise slightly vague terms, distinct and sequential. Here's another example from the same NASA standard. The simple requirement, in combination with the rationale, provides the context that will allow the system designer to determine how and where the current air temperature needs to be displayed in order for the requirement to be satisfied and accepted by NASA. NASA does not need to provide a number of requirements on the accuracy of the temperature measurement or on the font size of the display or on the specific location of the temperature readout. All this solution space is left to the supplier. One word of caution: do not start putting requirements in the rationale. No shalls and shoulds in the rationale. This is not a convenient way for you to impress the project manager by reducing the shall count in your specification by hiding requirements in the rationale. Don't do it. Also, do not start writing Moby Dick in the rationale. Remember, we are not writing textbooks or novels. Rationales are not there to provide instructions on how to implement the requirement. We must keep our requirements short and succinct, and that also applies to the rationale. Anything more than 2 sentences, and the internal alarm bell should go off. Here is an example from a recent project where we've started including the rationale. So if you are working in Word, you can use the format shown here and that used by NASA and others. It's lean and clean. If you are capturing your requirements in Excel, then a column where the attribute rationale is would be how people are doing this. Quite straightforward, really. Once we all start working in a requirements management tool, things will become even more easy, but more on that in a future module. The second option, trying to provide instructions on what to do if deviating from the requirement, is not a correct use of the rationale. A quick check on your retention capabilities with a couple of short quiz questions. Including additional scope in the rationale to help the contractor is not a legitimate use of the rationale, no matter how helpful you think it may be. If the contractor needs more scope, please capture this as separate requirements, and preferably in the scope section of your document. The first answer here is a brilliant example on how to use the rationale to create traceability between different needs and requirements that we specify on projects. More on this concept of traceability in a future module. The second option, trying to provide instructions on what to do if deviating from the requirement, is not a correct use of the rationale. The key takeaways from this module. The primary purpose of the rationale is to provide the reason the requirement exists and any additional information, but brief information to help with understanding the requirement statement. We are moving to a future where no requirement is complete without an accompanying rationale.